Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me again this evening for another Facebook live chat. I thank you for joining me this evening again, and it's been a long day from Ambuti in the East Sepik province and Teleforming in the West Sepik province. I was able to make it here on time. So thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you about some of the issues that is facing our country. As you know, today's topic is about education, skills, and jobs, especially for our youth and young and the unemployed in the country. Some opportunities and options that we may have to provide to our policy makers and decision makers. We hope that they can take some of these issues on board. But I will welcome your comments right after the presentation. But in respect to last week's comments about the final outcome of the budget for 2020, there has been some commentary about this in the papers. One of which is from a few of the academics in Australian National University. I want to say that we respect their views and their observation of our economy, but I feel that some of the comments are slightly misleading, given the fact that they are also being funded by the Australian government, especially the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And their comments relating to debt to GDP ratios, saying that debt to GDP of about heading towards 60% is acceptable in a developing economy like PNG. Well, I wonder they will have the same view if Australian economy was having similar outcomes of their budget and of their debt ratios. But let's leave that for another time to debate on it. Let's focus on today's issue about education, jobs and skills for our young. Education is something that is quite important to me personally because of the experiences that I have particularly experienced when I grew up in my district and my village in Yalabupangia, where my mother and of course other mothers in the village continue to take up great difficulties in raising school fees for the children and for myself also. So as a result of that challenge that has been faced by many parents right throughout the country, as you know, we introduced what we call now the free education or TFF through many. In 2012 we started that program by the government that I and of course Leo Dion led, and of course that was successfully implemented over the next 8 years to 2018, 2019 of course, but it was in 2019 the current government cancelled that particular scheme. Largely the tuition-free education program was to help our parents in the villages. As many of you know, an average villager in any of our communities right throughout the country does not earn more than probably 5,000 kina. That's been very generous. I think many of them don't even earn more than 1,000 or 2,000 kina a year in income to support themselves and their family. Many of them live a subsistence life, and on average many of them have got 3 to 5 kids. And when we have school fees that are ranging from anywhere between at high school and primary school from 500 to 3,000 kina across the country, none of these parents can afford to pay for any of their children to go to school. Again, that is a huge disappointment to each parent, knowing very well that education is something that it will improve their own kids' lives and themselves. As a child gets educated, they not only lift their own standards of living, but they also lift the family's standard of living because of our one-talk system and extended families that we are obligated to look after in our society. So in, of course, 2002 to 2018, the school number of kids in schools increased from less than 1 million kids in school, from elementary to year 12, to over 2.2 million kids in schools over that period of time. And of course, this free education policy is not something that is new. It was mooted by many governments, Chen government, Winter government, Marauta government, and many other governments over the past have tried to implement free education policy, but without much success. We have introduced that policy, and on average we were spending close to 700 million kina a year paying school fees. Over the 8 years we've paid close to 3.5 billion kina in school fees subsidy and school fees TFF right throughout the country. And this enabled a large number of kids to go to school. And of course, we saw a dramatic increase in the number of girl children who were able to go to school. In fact, up to many classes, there were over 50% of people who were attending were girls who were attending schools for the first time in many parts of the country. Of course, this was confirmed by the report presented by National Research Institute, which is an independent research institute in the country. And they have, in 2022, submitted a report which clearly stated that there was a substantial increase in the enrollments right throughout the country. It was particularly important that to see that the villages and low-income families were able to send their schools, and which lifted the enrollment to around 90% of all Papua New Guineans having access to free education. And I think that it improved the literacy rates right across the country. This is from that report by NARI. And of course, we've had some challenges, and it noted some challenges in the in issues like classroom space, number of kids to the teacher ratio, and the availability of teachers right throughout the country. So this is something that also needed to be better managed by Wagani, especially through the education department. But despite those challenges, there was a good effort by all concerned in making sure that our kids were able to attend schools and fees were paid right throughout the country. As I said, our children have got every right to a universal education. This was declared by United Nations in 1948. In 1948, we are a member of the United Nations. They have declared that there must be universal education. It's a human right. So every child has got a right to go to school, as then when they want to, and governments must provide that. We also were signatory to the Social and Cultural Rights in 1966, of which we are a signatory. Papua New Guinea is a signatory. Again, it is mandatory for free education, for primary education for children in all countries, and they insist that it must move into secondary and higher education right throughout the country. And I think that a policy such as the free education policy that we have introduced in the country is towards making sure that this right of a child and any human being is as protected by these declarations is carried out in our country. There is very good evidence that our country is not performing well since we abolished. Enrollment is down. From the reports that I am receiving is that less than 1 million kids are now in schools right throughout the country. That means that the other 1.2 million or 3 million, 1.3 million kids are staying at home or doing nothing all around the country because they are not able to afford to pay school fees. And given that school subsidies are now not arriving on time, Further, it has frustrated the schools to be able to provide decent education to our kids. And this is something that we should immediately address. Government must immediately reintroduce free education in the country. It is not about politics, it's about educating our children. A good policy that needs to be introduced must be embraced by all governments. Whether there's a new government in place in the coming elections or not, it must be embraced by any government that comes into play. Again, we must make sure that all secondary schooling throughout the country must be also free as well. Every year, from the reports we are getting, close to 120,000 kids finish year 12 right across the country and are looking for places. And over time, when we were in government, we have tried to, and we have had direct funding to all the colleges, teachers' colleges, nursing colleges, technical colleges, universities, right throughout the country to expand their capacity, build more lecture theatres and build more accommodation for both teachers and students wherever the priorities were needed. We funded all this to do that. It is so that they can increase the number of the students intake for each year for those institutions. It is therefore important that we continue to invest in this. From what I gather, in the current circumstances, this has not been carried out. As a result, the numbers remain the same. Many of the kids who are not able to get placing in the universities or the colleges are now left wandering on the street, looking for private institutions, which are very costly, and the parents are being again tasked to look for school fees, to pay for those fees, so that they can be able to advance their kids' education. This is not necessary when it is a government's primary responsibility. Government must provide education to its citizens as one of its top priorities of government. Now today we've got 5 government universities right throughout the country. University of Papua New Guinea, University of Technology, University of Goroka, University of the Natural Resources in Vudal, and recently we are building a university up in the Southern Highlands for the University of Western Pacific. These universities must be given the support and infrastructure that they require to increase their numbers. And of course we'll talk about the improvement in the quality of teaching as we progress this discussion, but we must build capacity, lecture theatres, dormitories, lecturers recruitment, and of course designing the courses that they will get. We cannot afford to let our young people wander the streets today. This is why we are having a huge difficulty in managing issues like law and order, because our youth are feeling frustrated. They have got nowhere to turn to. Our government is leaving them to fend for themselves. They are a responsibility of our government to look after. And of course, on top of our own universities, we've got the Divine Word University, and we've got the Pacific Advanced University, and the new university that's been proposed and started to take shape by the Lutheran University in Leyte. These are institutions that we need to build capacity so that they are able to take these kids coming into both the universities and all the other tertiary institutions right across the country. I think it's important that we must look towards working towards doubling the size number of intakes in all our universities right throughout the country. If they are taking 5,000 or 6,000 kids into the universities, we must now double it so that our population is increasing at an alarming rate, at 3% or over every year. Now, these kids need to find a place for their education and advancement in life, and this is what I think it should be our target, and our aim is to double the number of kids going into universities, triple the number of kids going into other tertiary institutions right across the country. That will cater for a large number of our year 12 kids now coming out. They shouldn't be running around looking for places and their parents going and lining up in queues trying to get a spot. It must be earned and placed in universities and tertiary institutions on their performance and their talent. What is the best course that each particular kid is suited for? They must be able to get into that, whether it's medicine or accountancy or being a lawyer or being a mechanic or being a doctor, being a nurse, or those are suited to talents of each individual. And that is why we should be able to nurture our kids into making sure that we give them a profession and a skill that they will be happy to work throughout their life and progress from there. One of the issues that has been concerning me is that apart from us developing the skills and of course developing and extending the capacities of all our tertiary institutions, including the universities, we have also got some of our development partners, of which we are very grateful, like the Australian government provides the Australian award scholarships, which grants Papua New Guinean kids to go and study in Australia. Well, Australian government annually almost gives about almost 587 million Australian dollars, which is close to 2 billion kina a year. Out of 2 billion kina, we sponsor only 233 kids to Australia, which it's at a cost of about 7 million Australian dollars, which is about 21 million kina. We got almost 2 billion kina, and we spend 21 million kina to get some of our best students to go and get further education in Australia. We appreciate that. But these numbers compared to some of the other countries around the world who are going to study in Australia, when you look at countries like China, of all the international students, they've got about 800,000 international students in Australia. It's a big industry in Australia. Out of the 800,000 students, there's close to about 231,000 students are Chinese who are allowed to go and study in Australia. And of course, from other countries, the balance of which come from India, the Pacific, and everywhere else. But from PNG, only 233. This can be improved. I think we need to triple or even 10 times the number of the kids that they're going to. 2,000 or 3,000, even 5,000 kids. We should be asking the Australian government to increase these numbers rather than giving us money that we don't know where it's spent in Papua New Guinea. They should be educating our people who are some of our best brains. Even some of our lecturers who are teaching in the universities, they should be having a twinning arrangement to go and teach in some of the universities in Australia so that they get the experience and come back and teach here. We must demand that from them. We must go to them with these facts to the Australian government when we are negotiating at these ministerial forums that many of our ministers always want to attend. They should be arguing on cases like this, not necessarily accept what Australia is giving to us. And one of the areas that Australia has been encouraging is that they will send consultants up here to continue to train our people. Well, the results are there for every one of us to see. It's certainly not working. We need to get our people to go and become international citizens and let them train internationally with internationally recognized degrees and come back and teach here and work in Papua New Guinea and of course contribute to our nation's development. And this is what we think we should do. We should increase our number of people going through and fully funded by Australian government. I think it can happen. In terms of education, as I said, those who are not able to get placements, those our students who are living year 12 and are not able to get placements, we have always talked about this National Service Program, and I'm a great believer in that. If the Defence Force or the Police Force want to train at the Officers Training Program, then year 12 graduates can apply directly. But from what I'm hearing today is that there is a lot of nepotism a lot of compromises happening in the selection process of many of our kids coming through. I think, many of these barracks that we have around the country, like Igam Barracks in East Sepik in Wewak, down in Ley, Moem Barracks in Wewak, Igam Barracks in Ley, Goldie here in Port Moresby and in NCDC, in Central, and of course Carrawil in Jiwaka. All these barracks can be converted into training grounds for us. We have our defense personnel sitting there. With due respect to most of them, they can be utilized even more. Their services, they are well-trained personnel, people who can take on more responsibilities, and those who are not able to get places in the universities or the technical colleges or higher institutions, most of these kids could be accommodated through a national service. That national service can be voluntary. Those kids who do not want to go to national service because they don't get a place in, then it's entirely up to them. But we must start the process. Allow the kids to go in there. And of course, the discipline forces, the police force, and the defense force can have, and the CIS, of course, can have the first selection of many of these young people who have been trained in the institutions. Seeing their behavior, their discipline, and their commitment to work, they can be able to recruit them into the expansion of these three disciplinary forces. We all know that we have the lowest number of policemen per person, or even defense force personnel per person, compared to international ratios. And that is the training ground for us to engage them. But we can also be able to train them in other government services. In of course, infrastructure building. Our engineering division in Carrawil can train young engineers through experience and through work, and works managers, and of course, equipment operators who are able to get that experience that they cannot get while sitting at home doing nothing. And I think it's important that we train these people in agriculture and all the other things that we need to build our country on. And I think that every child or every person must be given an equal chance of contributing meaningfully to our nation's development. Of course, jobs, if you are not trained well, and if we don't have jobs, then all this training and everything will add to nothing. Today we've got many of our degree holders and all these trained people who are now being placed out of jobs right throughout the country is a growing concern. When you see Papua New Guineans now, because our economy has declined, as we said in the last two charts that we have had, that our economy has shrunk, our GDP has come down. In fact, over the last 2 years, there is no foreign direct investment in the country. There is no foreign direct investment in the country. And at the same time, our own government's investment in the PIP programs, public investment programs like roads and bridges and all the other infrastructure that we need and will create employment for our young people is non-existent. So we need to get this balance right. One is that we must attract investment, give business confidence to both local businesses and, of course, the international investors who are going to create opportunities for us. Let me give you an example. If we had started Papua LNG, as experience shows it, when we started the first PNG LNG project with ExxonMobil, over 20,000 young people were employed. Many of those people who had that experience are still out there. And this particular project with Total, the Papua LNG project, can employ that number of people. And when you talk about Wafi Golpu, development of a major world-class mine, again, another 10 or 15,000 people will be employed. Our own citizens will be employed there. Then, of course, Pogara recently, a mine that was operating was closed down. If we reopen it up on a timely basis and get it running again, it'll create another 5,000 direct jobs. That's almost 40,000 jobs, and you just imagine the indirect jobs that will come with it. all the truck drivers and all the contractors and everyone else who are going to do subcontracting work for these major projects. So our government needs to get its focus right. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people out there without jobs today, struggling to survive. That's why we have social problems all around the country. It's not unique to the major cities anymore, it's everywhere. And what we need to do is able to create jobs. 85% of our people are living in the rural communities, in the districts and remote communities right throughout the country. These are people who need the jobs. What we need to do is give tax breaks that businesses can go and work there, employ people there, and they get a better tax incentive to do so. Many of the industries who would want to do that are starting to do it now, in agriculture mainly. You know, some of our investors in the country are now operating in remote areas like Layagaman, in my own district in Yalubu Pangia, and in Copiago and Koroba, where they've invested in chicken farms, strawberry farms, potato factories. This is an example of what we can do, but give them enough incentives to invest more in many other parts of the country and be able to create employment for our people. What also is needed is for these investors to invest. They need government to be stable in their decision-making process. Their policies, they must be consistent and stable, and they must create confidence. And the decisions that they make must be consistent and stable, not changing frequently, which gives no confidence to somebody who is going to invest billions and billions of kina in our country. These are large sums of money that they are trying to invest, which would create big opportunities for our people. And that is where our government's decision-making process. Right now, it seems to us that it is all over the place. And that is the reason why there's been no foreign direct investment in the country, despite commitments. I mean, recently we've had announcements about, investment of 100 billion kina in Morobe and not a 40 billion kina in Eastern Islands, and few big time investors have been flown into the country, some Australians and some Chinese who were flown in private jets to the country. Where are they now? This kind of false expectation been raised to our people. This is not the sort of decisions that we need to encourage in our country. When you talk about those kinds of money, they're even bigger than our budget. They're just given false expectation. And again, it doesn't create any confidence whatsoever. So we have to take note that over the last 2 years, instead of creating jobs, jobs have been reducing. Almost every company that is operating in the country has reduced the staffing cost and reduced the number of people that they employ. That is because their revenues have gone down as a result of the economy is shrinking, and they're not able to continue to employ these people. They're not able to make profits. When they don't make profits, they don't pay taxes, so the government revenue goes down as well. So we have to create, so in order for us to develop more jobs in the country, we must create a confident environment. We must give confidence to the investor. We must make sure that our policies are stable. We must give incentives that are focused in creating jobs, and jobs particularly in the rural areas. And I think by doing that, you can be able to be assured that more and more people are able to stay in their districts and in their communities and work harder to able to earn a decent living. We also need to take advantage of some of the incentives that in terms of creation of jobs. We need to take advantage of some of the schemes that our development partners like Australia is creating. Australia has been talking about us providing labor. They call it the seasonal worker program that has been going on for a while, and the Pacific Labor Scheme. Now, interestingly, in today's paper, our government has said that by 2025, they will have 8,000 Papua New Guineans working in Australia. Their target is by 2025. Let me give you some data which will be shocking to you. The Pacific Labor Scheme and the Seasonal Worker Program employ today 28 Papua New Guineans. 28 Papua New Guineans. These two programs employ the other Pacific Islanders, apart from PNG. All the other Pacific Islanders combined, they employ 8,655. While Papua New Guinea, the biggest populated country in the Pacific, we only have 28. The feedback from many of the farmers in Australia and everywhere else is that they love to see semi-skilled Papua New Guinean workers going there because they are very hard-working people. Why isn't our government telling the Australian government this is an unacceptable situation? We appreciate the initiative, but it seems to us that Papua New Guineans not been encouraged to take up this, while the rest of the Pacific is taking up this seasonal working program. As you will note, I'll give you some examples of how much they are getting paid. These seasonal workers and of course the labor scheme, Pacific Labor Scheme workers, each on average get 52 kina per hour when they work in Australia, which on average works out to be about 1,976 kina per fortnight. So when you work through that, many of them send their money back home to their families in Papua New Guinea. Or this is what is exactly happening. About 30% of the income is sent back to maintain the families back in the Pacific Islands. In fact, Papua New Guinea should be demanding with Australia that every Pacific Islander they employ, we deserve to have one, so they should match 1 to 1, rather than we are getting only 29 out of the rest of the Pacific, and they've got 8,600, close to 9,000. It's almost 10 to, even more than 10 to 1. I thought it was 1,000, it's 10 to 1, but anyway, that is where it is. So it is certainly something that we should be looking for. This is getting Papua New Guineans employed in the farm. If they're employed in the farm industry, they can bring the best practices of that farm back into Papua New Guinea, and they can create their own farms in their own villages. And I am told that this program now is only focused in Medan. Medan is not Papua New Guinea only, whilst I respect our people in Medan's desire to go there. But what is the rest of the Papua New Guinea? And it has been managed by the treasurer in his office. Come on, that is why we have the Department of Labor and Immigration and all the other offices that they create. What are these officers doing? Let's be serious about getting this labor scheme moving so that we can have some skills developed over the next few years, so that they can bring it back to Papua New Guinea and employ our people, develop their own farms, develop their own, and pass on those skills to our people to do a commercial farming rather than subsistence farming. This is what we should be aiming for. And there's an opportunity there to do that, and we are certainly missing out. So in summary, let me say this before I take on a few questions. Our country's population is growing at 3% per annum. That's on average, if it's 10 million people, 3% is about 300,000 people. 300,000 kids are born every year. So you work out the mathematics. If that continues, our population will be quite a large one in 5 to 10 years. And we have to find places for these kids. Right now, we've got about 120,000 kids graduating from year 12 onwards. That's the numbers that I was told when we were in government. So I assume that nothing much has changed, because the same number of kids would have gone to year 9, 10, and 11, and 12 over the past 2 years. So I think that you can see that we have got a serious problem on it. And one thing we have to do is we have to keep these people engaged. And that is why I'm saying we expand the capacities of our universities. We expand the capacity of all our tertiary institutions. We make sure that we update the curriculums of all these institutions. One of the reasons why people say that the quality of education dropped in Papua New Guinea was because of TFF. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. It's one of the reasons, probably yes, because of the large number of kids. But you must remember, back in 2002 or so, when we changed the curriculum, many of us who are a bit older, we were educated through a standard-based education. But when it was changed to outcome-based education, our curriculum completely changed, where elementary schools were taught in Tokples, and then they were taught in Tokples up to standard 1, 2, and 3, grades 1, 2, and 3. And then the schemes changed to English from there onwards. When we all know that for the kids' learning experience comes between when you are 5 and 8 or 9, that's the age in which you learn the most and pick up all the things that schools can teach. So when we are having kids in elementary school and in grades 1, 2, and 3 and in primary schools, all mixed up with different curriculums, different talk places, of course you can see the confusion in there. Well, we have to remember that we've got 800 plus languages right across the country, and there's no single language that we can write a curriculum for elementary schools, or grade 1 or grade 2 or grade 3. And trying to translate the curriculums into each language across the country, it's not an easy task. So none of these were taken into account when we introduced this. I know the desire was to maintain our languages and our culture and things, but what are the parents' responsibility and the responsibility of the community to teach the kids our local languages, teach the kids our customs and culture, when to Sinsin and Tokples. That's what we were all taught when we were in the villages. I haven't forgotten my languages. I haven't forgotten my cultures, because I started in grade 1 when we started learning to speak English. And I'm certain that many of the older generation of Papua New Guineans like me feel the same way. So when we were in government, we forced the education department to go back to standard-based education system. That's where we learn English, science, maths, and all those basic subjects that will give you the foundation to go to further education. So we must get the curriculum right. We must get the technical colleges right, all the tertiary institutions like teachers' colleges, nursing colleges, and upgrade the universities, bring in lecturers from outside. When you see countries around the world who got independence after us, they had an influx of experts right across the country. It doesn't matter how much money it cost them. Even if they have to be paid more, they got the best lecturers into the university to teach them. I am not saying that our lecturers are not able to do so, but we need to help them as well. We need to help them upgrade their skills, get them to go into tuning arrangements in other universities right across, and tertiary institutions right across the world. We've got very good development partners. Japan is there, America is there, New Zealand is there, Australia is there, UK is there. They're able to help us develop these programs, and I think our officials and our leaders need to take advantage of this. And with those few comments, let me thank you once again for being here with me tonight. And I'm sure that given the limited time we have, I'm not able to cover every subject, but this is the principles that I believe in. I want to assure you, and I've been to schools in Tipas in Teleforming today. Yesterday I went to a primary school in Parom in the Wewak district, and the message that I'm getting is very clear. They want free education, tuition-free education. They want curriculums to be changed, and they want their kids to be educated. We have no choice but to follow the demands for our parents and our children. I want to start by saying that thank you very much for Andy, who has asked, he said, should we try to reduce the population of 3% growth to a more realistic, so that we can match the availability of jobs? I agree with you that population planning, in the 70s and the 60s, from what I can recall, family planning was one of the top priorities in primary health education when the visits were made to many of the villages right throughout the country. We have to redo that. all our nurses and doctors, and some of them who are in the district hospitals in the remote areas, must be encouraged to go on patrols, where they will have to educate the mothers on how to look after the kids and malnourishment, and of course feeding them well, but at the same time talk about population control, and that requires the participation of both parents, that they need to focus on the number of kids that they can afford to look after and give them the quality that these kids deserve. And I agree with Andy that that is the way we should go. I've got Stephen who's saying that school systems must teach our children to also be SME owners, not just employees. Yes, I agree with you. SME is a subject that we will discuss in one of our chats, in the upcoming chats, but let me say this. Not everyone in the country can be a businessman or businesswoman. But there will be a good number of them right throughout the communities and around the country. And SMEs development is good, but today it has been done at a piecemeal level. I have been supporting the National Development Bank for quite some time, providing funding to try and get that funding out to our farmers and small business operators across the country. And today's government has made some promises for making funds available, but we all know the story of those funds today. But it is not about blame game, but we must remember some of the successes in SME. You don't necessarily have to teach them to be SME owners in classes only, but also in looking at the examples that we have done and where government interventions can take place. Let me give you an example. Some of our first Papua New Guinean businessmen and women came through small business owners to where they were. When you look up in the islands, you will see that many of the coffee plantations, not big coffee plantations, but coffee block owners, they were able to transform them with the supervision and management of institutions like what they used to call National Plantation Management Agency. Our villagers who had those blocks of coffee plantations were not able to manage them well, so National Plantation Management Agency provided the accountancy, business advice, and of course agricultural and technical advice on making sure the coffees were pruned well so that they can yield better output. And this is what the governments were doing at that time. And it was a company that was owned by the Agriculture Bank which provided those services. In the Highlands, there was also been done by private companies like Enco, which was called Enco Dev at that time. And many of our coffee farmers up in the Highlands, and Enco Dev and these companies also provided in cocoa and copra and all the other locally owned enterprises right throughout the country, and many successes came about that. But it also created employment in the village level for many of these, and there wasn't many disputes about land and land tenure and so forth in those days. The second successful program was the straight passing store scheme. When some of the teachers or public servants who wanted to retire, the Agricultural Bank provided them a training scheme to making sure that they were able to manage stores right throughout the country. And many of those became very, very successful storekeepers and store owners right throughout the country. And at the same time, were able to invest in other investments, in real estate and transport and so forth. So the successes are there, experiences are there. All we need to do is give those institutions where our people need is management skills. Giving them money is okay. They need credit as well, but management skills to make sure that they manage their businesses well. Our people sometimes spend money unnecessarily, and they don't necessarily look after and have the culture of savings. So it is those two things that will make a business person successful in the long run. Having a good credit rating, making sure that remembering that your bank is your partner, and of course whatever subsidy or grants that the governments give are put to good use, not unnecessary spending, and as a result your business fails and you keep on blaming the government or someone else. So I think Stephen's question is right. At some stage, when we go down to the technical colleges or universities where we're teaching people accounting skills and business management skills, they must be taught how to be SME owners if they want to pursue that career. And those opportunities must be developed in those in the tertiary institutions and technical colleges and the universities. McWells asked, why is Divine Word not being paid its subsidy in 2021? It's affecting the graduates. I don't know whether it's only Divine Word, but I recently read that University of Goroka, some of the kids who graduated were not able to get the certificates. It's unfortunate. This is one thing that we all look for. And I graduated from UPNG many years ago, over 30 plus years ago. And one thing that I can assure you that every one of us who were trying to graduate were looking forward to getting our small degree paper, which was like a start to our life. So when governments are not able to give the monies that has been rightfully allocated through the budget, through these institutions, is wrong. They must make sure that they prioritize that and give it to them immediately. Again, this is a subject that we covered in the other two charts, and that is that our economy is not performing well. As I said, the revenues of our country is down. Doesn't matter what the gloomy picture that they tell you. If they are not able to look after the subsidies they promise, and if they are not able to pay the bills that they are supposed to be paying, and they are putting in the other priorities, and some of these priorities were not approved by Parliament or not approved by through the budget process, and that is wrong. I think graduating students deserve to get the certificates and move on from there. I've got Colin asking about tax breaks for personal tax pays or for businesses. Well, both, because when you cut taxes for personal tax, it puts more money into the pockets of every individual who is working hard. Today, when we are in recession and when the economy needs stimulation, that is one of the things that needs to be done. One thing we have to do is that when our currency's value is going down, our purchasing power is going down, we are not able to afford to feed the family. I hear stories about when we used to buy enough food in a fortnight to last our family. Now we cannot even, our salaries cannot last a fortnight to feed our family. This is again a serious concern. Our people in framing the budgets and things, and who are managing the fiscal policy and monetary policy, need to look at this. This is reality on the ground. They need to readjust the personal income tax for especially low income earners. There's no need for them to pay tax. I think people who are earning up to 20,000 Kina per year should not pay any tax. And beyond that, of course, we will pay a small amount of tax so that we can continue to maintain a healthy revenue for the country. In terms of business taxes, when you look at in the US, I think when President Trump came in, it's a good example to show to Papua New Guinea. When they cut the tax from, I think it was close to 25 or 30%, down to 17% across the board for companies right across. Immediately, investment by companies grew. That means more and more people are getting employed, and more businesses are taking place in the country. And at the same time, if these companies are now starting to make money, they are going to pay more tax. So when the number of rate of tax may decrease, but when the number of businesses increase, your tax revenue continues to stay healthy. So it needs to come with some level of understanding that this is the way to go. And both company and personal tax needs to be reviewed, and reviewed immediately. And I've been for some time now telling the government that they should be able to do a supplementary budget. Now we are going to second year to what they now call it a COVID-induced recession. But COVID is just an excuse. The rest of the world who have got COVID, their economies are growing. They are not struggling like PNG. You have to look at Australia, the economy is growing. You look at Indonesia, you look at Singapore, Malaysia. All these economies are growing while PNG is declining. It's simply because we are not able to have the confidence of the business community, investment community, and that is why many of our citizens are out of jobs, and many of our citizens' businesses are struggling. We are all struggling because our revenues for each of our small businesses that we own has come down, and average by 30%. That means you have to cut costs. You sack a lot of people, you make sure that you switch the power off when you go home, and that is the reality of life we are facing in PNG. Talk about switching power off, let me say, only when it's on, but sometimes we have extended blackouts right throughout the country. Now, Gibe asked, without FDI, what can we do ourselves in PNG to create jobs? Well, government must invest. Government must invest in infrastructure, invest in stimulating the economy by making sure that they invest in agricultural programs. They must lend money to the housing development program that is going on around the country. Put more money in areas where people can be physically employed. The housing program that we have developed with BSP is successful. They should be able to put more money in there. It's employing thousands of people to help them build the houses. This is a labor-intensive jobs that we need to encourage right throughout the country and be able to do so. But no country in the world survives without foreign direct investment. Even the biggest economies in the world, United States, China, and Japan, are still encouraging foreign direct investment into the country. No country is alone in this world. We are here together, and that is why we need to manage it well for the benefit of our people and our country. Don't be fearful about us not engaging with the foreign community. We need them as much as they need us, and that is why we need to continue to encourage them to do so. Would you, Maya asked, he says, would you support a student loan policy if you became PM? Well, I've always thought that was a good policy, but the way it has been managed today, we have left it to a government agency to do it, and there's a lot of compromises. We need to find a way on how we can manage a student loan program. Now, that is a loan program that will follow that child when he graduates, like many places around the world. When he graduates and goes to an employment, that loan will be following him. So you are starting off your career as under the student loan program from the beginning. For me, our country does not have the income levels like many of the Western countries who have that policy. Some of the parents are able to afford to help the students to pay their student loan off in Australia and United States and United Kingdom. But in PNG, our parents are already struggling. Our villages are already struggling. You are struggling to get a job in the first place. And the first job that you get, you will start paying off the student loan. I don't think that is the way to do it. So for me, I would rather have a subsidized tertiary education program for the entire student community in the country. We need to find a way, even if we have to get all our revenues from the oil and gas we are getting today. If we can pack it into education, our student, I'll be able to do it. I'll be happy with that. Because today, it's been mismanaged in any case. So what's the point? Let's manage it to educate our population. I necessarily, personally do not encourage that student loan scheme. I'm opposed to it, but that is my personal view. Others may have a better solution to this than I do, but I think this is a student loan scheme better for the Western countries, advanced countries, but not for developing countries like ours. From Seth, should we remove all foreign-owned SMEs to make way for PNG-owned SMEs to create jobs? Agreed. You see the local SME bills that we have passed. The law is very clear. Somebody needs to implement it. The laws are there that businesses at certain level are only reserved for Papua New Guineans. That is a law that we passed when we were in government, and of course I give credit to my friend from Yanguru South here, Richard Maru, who was the trade and industry minister. He went ahead and introduced a law which we all supported and we all encouraged. I think that foreigners have got a place or level of investment they should make. We've said that it'll be a 10 million kina or more, and none of the shops that I go around the districts and small districts right throughout the country is worth 10 million kina. So officials both in immigration, labor and trade industry must get out there and manage this issue. In fact, we are inviting all these people to go to our homes and our villages and our districts and our towns. Papua New Guineans must learn to work. Some of them become landlords only. They want to collect rent. You have to try and run the shop. If you can't, train somebody to run it, or rent it to a Papua New Guinean to run it who wants to get into that business. But this is where we need to encourage each other. This is our country, and money must remain in our country. And we can't continue to allow. But many foreign investors who are in the country, some of them are very good investors, and they invest big money. Some investors have got 20, 30 shops right around the country. That is a big investment, well over 10 million kina, probably in hundreds of millions of kina. But they are doing a great job, and we should encourage them. They're employing thousands and thousands of Papua New Guineans. But I don't like this idea of going into a shop and I see foreigners operating the till. That's not acceptable in anybody's language. Okay, Amotis says, very concerned about the quality of uni lecturers. We need to improve. As I said, I don't want to undermine the integrity and professionalism of any of our Papua New Guinean lecturers who are teaching under very difficult circumstances. And I have had the first knowledge and account of what they have been through. And as I said, where we need to improve quality and capacity, we should invest to employ experts all around the world to come back into our universities and manage these universities so that we can improve the quality, not necessarily displacing our own lecturers. And we should allow our own lecturers to go on twinning arrangements. Many universities around the world are quite happy to do that. We can send 2 or 3 to some universities in Australia and UK and United States. And when they come back, they learn new things and learn to improve themselves, and they can pass those new knowledge onto our students. So yes, we need to all work together in making sure that the quality improves for our students into the future. Well, I've got 4 more minutes, so I'm sorry that we've gone through quite a lot, but it's an interesting subject. Shepherd says that our system of education and our curriculum is outdated. Yes, very true. As I said, when we introduced when the country introduced the outcome-based education curriculum in 2002 or 3, we did a disservice to our students and our people. From that day onwards, the quality of education continued to decline because our teachers were not trained to fill in and properly to fill into that gap that was needed to be retrained. When we were in government in 2000 and I think it was 4 or 5. I think it was 2007. I think when we returned after the elections, not 2007, 14 or 15. When we were in government, I think we introduced the 1-6-6 concept. That is means 1 year of elementary school, 6 years of primary school, and then 4 years of high school, and then 2 years. So at high schools, we were trying to make sure that we build in year 12, 11, and 12 into those. So it was 1-6-6 concept that we were introducing. At the same time, making sure that the standard-based education system, focusing on maths, science, and English, were brought back into the school systems right throughout the country, and I'm certain I'm told that is now been introduced and implemented. All the curriculums have been rewritten. I'm hoping that it is now implemented right throughout the country. So thank you, Shepherd. Very good comments. Yes, true. I've got another question. Desmond is saying we need to improve on and move quality TVET schools in PNG. Agreed. There's no issues about that. And then one good comment saying that Hulat asks, can we reprocess minerals here to create jobs? Yes, can be done. I think in institutions like now we own Western Province and Papua New Guinea owns Octedi 100%. I see no reason why government shouldn't be encouraging Octedi to do a mineral refinery program here in PNG to create more jobs, and it is an extension of their current business. So there's a possibility that this can be done, and I see no reason why we shouldn't do it. Shouting out to Jubilee, yes, we need to beef up access to our jobs in Australia and New Zealand. Well, our government needs to yell and scream to both Australia and New Zealand. Don't be polite and yes, master business. Yell and scream. And let's get them to give us our fair share. In Pacific, Pacific cannot be without PNG. PNG is the biggest economy, biggest population, and biggest land mass. So don't be afraid of our size. Patrick says teachers overworked can limit class sizes, especially in high schools. Yes, we must build more infrastructure. And this is where we are trying to get DSIP and PSIP programs in the districts and the provinces. Focus on health and education. I don't know why we are spending money on everything else. Of course, in some remote areas, we are focusing on roads, trying to make sure that our villages have access to services. But where the roads are accessible, people should focus on building more infrastructure for schools and health system. And I was very pleased to be in the East Sepik province and West Sepik province over the last 2 days, witnessing the opening of some of the schools, and they're doing an excellent job. And credit goes to my friend from Ambutiti Drakike, a great believer, Honorable Johnson Wapunai, for making a right. And also, last question. Sorry, I have to go. I'm running over time. But is there anything this current government is doing that is good? You are the judge. You make the judge. I have my own views about it anyway. And many of them, my colleagues, I've worked with them. I have no personal issues with them. But for the country, I must say that they need to get their act together and making sure that they address the challenges that we are facing today. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to Peter Tombo. I also enjoyed doing the session today, and we will look forward to seeing you in the next session in the coming weeks. Thank you. God bless.